Hi, this is Patrick from Startup Zone, and today we have another amazing guest. He's from Singapore, but not only living there. He's a citizen from England. He's one of the top 100 most influential LinkedIn bloggers, one of the top social sellers in Asia Pac. He was awarded Asia's most influential digital media professional and small business rising star, author of several international bestsellers, owner of several businesses, and you can see it already. He is the only Nasdaq listed CEO.
Not Nasdaq listed. Don't mention Nasdaq.
Oh, no.
We left Nasdaq 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, but let's say you were the only Nasdaq.
Well, I'm the only CEO of the Mohawk. That's how we now, the position of the brand now is very much the only CEO of the Mohawk. We just dropped the Nasdaq.
Okay, that's good. So, welcome and thank you very much,
Pleasure, thank
Chris
you.
Reed, for taking the time and talking to us today.
Pleasure, thank you.
Maybe you let us know a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what was your way to Singapore eventually?
Well, I'm obviously English, so I left England 10 years ago because obviously I predicted Brexit and the chaos that Brexit would bring. But also, I mean, in all seriousness, that is the mentality of British people versus Singapore. Why I left UK to get to Singapore is literally because I was an entrepreneur in London and I found it very closed. I found it, my only clients were in England. I'd never had a European brief. You know, it's very much that's the way England is. Where I came to Singapore, and it was a choice between Singapore and Hong Kong, and I settled in Singapore 10 years ago now. The first thing I learned was the government there and everyone there going, okay, we're going to target the whole of Asia Pacific. And you go, the whole of Asia Pacific? That's like 2/3 of the world's population. Are you sure you mean the whole? Like India and China and Japan and Australia and Indonesia and okay, just get on with it. And it's just like, it's expected there. That you target other people. So I saw an opportunity to test myself. I was coming to be year 40. Yeah. So if you don't test yourself then, if you don't leave your country, then you really never were going to do it. So I went there. I just had my second divorce. So it was a good time to actually do it. So it's like, yes, I've had another divorce since then, but that's another story. But it's a good time to kind of like, okay, let's do a clean break. Also, I hadn't seen the sun for like several years because London's been like, you know, in the summer it's grey and drizzly, and in the winter it's dark and grizzly. And that's basically the difference between summer and winter. And it is amazing to be in Singapore because it's just like, I've learned so much. And I started using LinkedIn by coming over, and literally I didn't know anybody. So I came over knowing literally nobody. I used my connections in the UK. I had 200 LinkedIn connections 10 years ago. And I said, do you know somebody in Singapore? And they all said, or many of them said, yes, go and see this person, go and see this person. That's amazing. And then when I wrote to them on LinkedIn, they all said yes. And it's like, this is amazing. If this had happened the other way around, people in London would not have said yes. Yeah. They would have said, no, go away. Who do you think you are? Whereas in Singapore, no, come in. And they were, Filipinos and Malaysians and Singaporeans and English people and expats and Australians and Europeans. And it's like, even Americans were friendly over there. It's like, whoa, Americans are even open-minded and friendly over here. It's amazing. Take them out of America, they suddenly become different people. It's absolutely incredible. And literally, people have a different mentality. And my first job there, I got through networking on LinkedIn. And it was literally, I was running the whole of Southeast Asia. My second job was I was running the whole of Asia Pacific. And my third job was like, we're doing something global. And it's like, this is quite amazing. For the people in Singapore have a completely different mindset. And I created Black Marketing because I saw the power of LinkedIn. I got my first 3 jobs using LinkedIn, and then those jobs were doing lead generation and marketing, and I was using LinkedIn to find people, because I figured if you can use LinkedIn, which at the time was purely about recruitment, if you can use it for recruitment, you can also use it to find the person to pitch. And so whilst other people were finding people to place into roles, I was finding CMOs and CEOs in Shanghai and Japan and Sydney and India and Indonesia, and pitching them, going, this is amazing, this works. And that's several years later they created what they call now social selling and Sales Navigator. The town didn't have that, so I just used the data in the different bit.
I think LinkedIn looked quite different, like 10 years ago when you were saying, but that's basically how you started, right?
Correct.
Was again the reason you choose Singapore over Hong Kong? Was there a special reason?
Basically, we looked at things like, Britain had just left, for example, Hong Kong, and it was very much clear what was going to happen in terms of China coming in, and you can see that now. When I went there, first of all, people used to speak English. Now they don't. Many people now don't speak as much English. Now Mandarin is now number 1 language there, where Singapore is English first.
Yeah.
So from the point of view, from my point of view, I'm terrible at languages. So go back to your earlier question about, was I any good at school? No, I was terrible at school. I failed everything at school. I couldn't even speak French, let alone Mandarin or Bahasa or anything else. So, I knew that if you go with an English-speaking country versus a non-English-speaking country, I'm going to choose this.
Is a good place to be.
And also if you go into things like little things like the airport. I spend so much time in Changi Airport that actually it makes a hell of a difference if you go through Changi Airport and you can literally get out in 5 minutes and be home in 10, whereas Hong Kong you can't. Hong Kong takes a long time to get out. It's a horrible airport and it's an hour from the city.
Yeah.
So, and also people have told me that basically Hong Kong has obviously lots of pollution and it's there's no greenery there, whereas I read up about things like Lee Kuan Yew, for example, who believed in greenery in Singapore to not only cool things down, but also from a visual point of view, an aesthetic point of view. So I was very impressed when I went there and go, wow, this is amazing. And then the shops were open till like midnight on a Sunday, which, coming from the UK, it's like they close, close at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. They close. It's like, what do you mean they close? Like, you heard the thing called the internet?
But the other way is also funny, right? Like people visiting you, like Asians, and it's like, hey, I want to go for shopping on Sunday, but everything is closed. And of course. It's like, okay, that sounds cool. So you don't seem to regret that at all. You made that.
Oh no, it's the best thing I ever did. It literally, it's probably the best decision of my life.
Nice.
Because it transformed my business and it transformed myself.
Yeah. Talking about business or businesses, I mentioned it before. Several businesses. You just told me before is 7 in total. You started with the black market.
Yes,
that was your first.
Yeah, that's our first one. It still is the flagship brand. So I'll be going in 6 years. So very much that does LinkedIn for entrepreneurs and SMEs. So we do things like social selling, for example. We generate leads. We do personal branding. We do employee branding. But for SMEs, very much for SMEs. For people like you and I who run companies, for example, we work for you because you might not have a marketing team or a sales team. And if you do, they don't know how to do LinkedIn. So we do that. And we do, and Dark Art does PR for entrepreneurs, but we amplify on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Mohawk does TripAdvisor, but combines that with LinkedIn, aiming at hotels and hospitality.
Yes.
Spark does Tinder and LinkedIn.
Oh, that was an interesting.
Yes, that's the interesting one.
So, say a little bit more about that.
That one is very much a personal thing. So basically, if you want to meet a professional and you don't want to have a fake profile on Tinder, for example, the best way of doing that is to basically have someone look at your LinkedIn profile and say, oh yeah, you're a real person with a real job with a real income. Because it's very easy, particularly in Singapore, to meet the wrong kind of woman, for example, shall we say, on Tinder. Who may not have a real job and may just be there for a few days, and then you meet the other kind of woman there who basically may be a domestic helper, for example, and they can only see on a Sunday, which is fine, but it's very limiting, and you also don't very much to talk about. So you get over the initial let's have fun and all the rest of it, and then you go, okay, this isn't really going anywhere, is it? I can't see you until every Sunday, and then so this is to basically I always used to put my LinkedIn on my Tinder, for example. So okay, check me out. Here's the reassurance. I'm a real person. Because women also, they have to have some kind of protection on Tinder than who they're going to meet. I mean, Singapore's very safe. But even so, if they can check out and go, okay, he's a real person with you've at least got something to talk about as well. So that was the idea behind that. And then we created Social Selling, which is a conference brand. So that's in the second year now. And that sold out at Microsoft last year. And our 7th brand is Rockstar Keynote Speaker, which is basically a female speaker bureau. So we're going to promote, and we are promoting female speakers because basically there's lots of prejudice out there, for example. Lots of people just picking male speakers because they're a man and not because of quality.
Let's come back to that a little bit later. That is really a very interesting topic, I have to say, so I want to put a little more time on that one. So 7 businesses, and then you said like everything is based around LinkedIn, right?
Yes, correct. All 7 brands are LinkedIn orientated, correct.
Right? And even your books, right? So 3 books I think are out. I was reading into one, the LinkedIn Mastery for Entrepreneurs,
that's correct,
which like summarizes really a lot, I would say, about what to do, what not to do with your LinkedIn profile, your personal and also your company one. And what I find really cool is that you put it on the webpage, the Smashwords, where I got it for $3, like the other books. So this one, right, for $5, something like that. That's really amazing.
And we put it on Kindle as well. The idea is to get people to read them. So we have the 3 books, and basically we put them on Kindle quite cheaply if we want people to read them, because ultimately, if you read the book, then you're more likely to buy our services, engage our services, recommend us, and so forth as well. So it's basically a loss leader to basically promote the services.
I read in the forward of the LinkedIn Master for Entrepreneurs that you said like you were appearing on the front page of local papers in Singapore for all the wrong and right reasons. And of course, I want to know like, okay, what are those wrong reasons?
Oh, you didn't Google it, did you? You didn't Google Chris Reed Singapore. If you Google Chris Reed Singapore taxi drivers, for example, you can see all the abuse I got for basically writing a blog about Singaporean taxi drivers, and I got fired as well. So I got fired from my job at the time, which is actually not a bad thing to do. I was a couple of years there, and I got fired for writing this blog because it went to the front page and all the newspapers are talking about it. And I went, oh, okay, I made a big mistake here. And so it was quite a big lesson to learn, but it also got me quite a lot of name recognition. So I learned, okay, because controversy kind of works here. So then after a while, people forgot why they knew about me or why they'd heard about me. They just remembered the name, which is no bad thing. I thought, okay, so I've repeated that trick several times since. With varying degrees of success.
Reasons, right?
Well, no, both. I mean, we've done it both ways. We've I deliberately sometimes create controversy, for example, to get that name recognition, to get the most read column or the most read engagement, for example, because I have what I call a Marmite brand. You may know Marmite? No, okay. So Marmite is something that the English people kind of like either love or hate. It's kind of like this paste, and people either go, ugh, or they go, wow, I love Marmite.
Okay.
So basically, that's a bit like my brand. You either love me or you hate me kind of thing, but you need that kind of discord and kind of like that passion on both sides to basically make people talk about it, say, no, I like Chris Reed, no, I hate Chris Reed. So it is very much that come together. So that's the best way to talk about it. Precisely. The worst thing, as the kind of like the quote is that what's worse than being talked about? Not being talked about. Because then you don't have a reputation, no one's talking about it, no one cares. So at least someone cares enough to basically comment on something or quote about something or talk about it.
Okay, so you're saying like you are raising these controversies. Were there any, like, let's say this new term, the shitstorms, like coming up?
Totally.
You facing
so
that?
the NASDAQ thing you mentioned was exactly that. That's why you don't mention the NASDAQ thing. That was a shitstorm. That was.
We can cut that later. Oh, was it? How do you definitely a shitstorm? I mean, you're prepared for it, right?
Yeah.
Because you say you work with that controversy,
totally.
So you're aware about that.
But because I sold the Singapore black marketing business to a company, and we floated on NASDAQ in Sweden, for example, and then we went up to like 18 companies, went to a very high share price, but none of the founders could actually sell the shares, and then it quickly turned out that all was not well and all was not what it seemed. So basically it diminished, and basically I left, and then the CEO reneged on a deal to basically do a joint press release and a joint announcement, and then 2 months later he announced that he basically terminated me and that no one would shed a tear, which is why if you Google that you can find that, which wasn't true. Basically it was a complete lie. I'd resigned 2 months beforehand, and basically but I did an agreement with him that I wouldn't announce it until we did a joint release, and he reneged on that. But if you look at the headline, it basically says that he fired me. But if you look at what happened since, he's lost another 15 companies since then. So basically, make your own mind up. Was it me or was it somebody else? Well, time already has told, because now the share price is like 3 cents and nobody's left.
It's, I think it's a tough thing to handle, right?
Yeah, I was going through my third divorce at the time as well. So, I like to combine these kind of like stresses and say, there's not enough stress here. Let's have a divorce as well as leave my young company in. Challenging. It's interesting.
Let's talk about a topic that's like more brighter. And you mentioned it before, your initiative for women speakers.
Yes.
I thought that highly interesting.
Yes.
Maybe you explain first a little bit what it is about.
So basically, it came about because I kept on talking to female speakers, and I worked with Primetime Professional Women's Association, and a couple of talks there, and then I started working with Keynote Speakers, which is basically Asia women speakers, and they basically said that there's lots of panels out there, there's lots of keynotes out there, and they keep on getting them to men, and not just men either. They're normally white men. Even though we're in Asia, they tend to be 4 white men or 5 white men, and you can see, if you look on LinkedIn, they share a panel, it's like 4 white men or 6 men of like, where's the women? And it's basically people say, oh no, we've chosen the best person, and you look deeper into those people, you go, no, you haven't chosen the best person at all. It's basically because you're more comfortable with that man than you are a woman there. There's plenty of women out there. Women don't push themselves hard enough, which they openly admit themselves. So they need basically, I'm not saying it has to be a man to help them, I'm just having to say that no one else was doing it. So I said, okay, I'm going to create a brand, work with women speakers, work with Keynote, work with Primetime to actually promote women speakers, so that women speakers at least get promoted, because half the thing is that women speakers don't like promoting themselves. They are much more less arrogant than men, more self-aware of their weaknesses than men. People like me and you just basically, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I can speak over there. Yeah, I'm fantastic. Whereas women don't do that. Women go, are you sure? No, I'm sure there's someone else better over here. And because they're just more aware, they've got more EQ and they're more sensitive and so forth. All the great things that make women fantastic, it comes through in there, but it comes out in a weakness if you're trying to pitch yourself against a man or against somebody who's saying they're great and they're amazing and they're wonderful, but they're probably not. So what we do is basically we amplify their strengths and we basically help promote them. So we're doing the selling. So I'm doing the selling and my team are doing the selling on their behalf, effectively acting like agents, but we're specializing in female speakers. Because all the other speakers of bureaus across the world, if you look at their rationale of men against women speakers, it's like they may have 10%, maybe 15% women, and the rest are all men. So it's no wonder only men basically get on the panels and the keynote. So we're going to basically tip it around the other side. We're going to work for women directly, enhance their LinkedIn profiles, sell them on LinkedIn, do more personal branding for them, and market them separately and become the place to be. And we're getting people speakers from all over the world. Literally, we had people speakers from America, people from the UK, people from Hong Kong, Sydney, Shanghai, Singapore, literally across the world. Absolutely across the world, basically saying, that's an amazing idea. We love your initiative and we'd love to be part of it. Can we promote us? And that wouldn't happen if the prejudice out there wasn't actually happening. So if everything's okay, because I've had criticism of people saying, oh, we don't need a white man to help us, kind of thing. Well, clearly you do, because people are saying to me, help me. So and women are the kind of people who say they would like some help, whereas men wouldn't do this. If this situation was reversed, there wouldn't be men going, oh, can you help me, because they wouldn't do that. They just basically sit by themselves and pretend nothing happened, because that's what men do. So that's the initiative to do that. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, this approach, I think it also is a fantastic approach, because the other way of doing things, like what I see a lot is like quotas, right?
Yeah.
Put quotas, gender quotas, and I personally think it's a horrible thing, right? Because it's in the end not helping anyone. I'm not sure what's your
I totally agree. We're not saying do quotas. We're just saying pick the best person.
Yeah, correct.
And most of the time, the best person is not a white man who happens to be in that particular job. Either tick the box. It's probably going to be a woman. But the problem is the woman isn't being promoted enough, and is not being amplified enough, or the man just won't pick a woman. I've had a lunch with a speaker last week. Very, very high up speaker, has been doing speaking for many, many years. Before that, she was a marketing director of a big brand, actually a big German brand in Singapore. And she said to me 3 times in the last 2 months, she's been pitched forward for an event, for a keynote, and then the male CEO has said, nope, don't want her, I want this man over here. She's precisely 3 times that's happened. That's not coincidence. And she's a very good speaker. She's got credibility, she's got experience, she's worked for a male-dominated brand, and she's phenomenally well. She's with a big German brand in Singapore, doing a phenomenal job, and basically she gets looked over. So why does that happen? That's not because a man is better. It's because they've just chosen a man because of his sex, not because he's better.
It's impressive that still happens. Obviously, it happens still today,
it does,
right?
Without a shadow of a doubt,
19 or 18.
And you can see it. You just look on social media, look at the amount of panels just have men. It's like, you can see it.
It's like that, I mostly see that. But again, you see it everywhere, right? You see it in board of directors, leadership, executive roles.
Definitely board of directors.
Right?
Definitely.
I read recently also in Malaysia Parliament, they promoted that 30% women should be in the Parliament. Again, makes it a quote.
A quota, okay.
Quota, right? And then it's like, then you're not sure, it's like, okay, did you really pick the best, or you just have to fill a quota? That's why I think this is.
But on the other hand, you've got, for example, the SGX in Singapore has 9% of their directors are female. Now that's not because there aren't another 40% of females out there who are good directors. It's because they're not being picked. So that's not a quota thing, that's just a prejudice thing. That's just, it's an old boys club kind of thing. We're just going to have the boys in here running the show. It's like, you need some women in this. You can't be basically, because the women are going to be better, solving better problems, being more dynamic, being more creative, and they're not just be going back, he's a friend of mine, so let's put him in the board of directors instead. And that's what's happening. So if you need quotas to build it up, then so be it. But you shouldn't need quotas, you should pick the best person.
Okay. Great to hear that you got something to help promote, and
all our services.
Next time I'm on the panel, more ladies also.
But in all seriousness, it takes men to do it.
Yeah.
And I saw a post last week, for example, by a high-up marketing director of Mattel in America, and he basically said, "I've been invited to speak in an all-male panel," and I said no. And an all-white male panel, and I said no in America. And basically he put it out there saying, I'm not going to speak anymore. And basically he got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people saying, fantastic, and hundreds of people said, you shouldn't do that. Basically, why? And he got criticised, but he's in America, so they have different things. They said, "Oh, what about the blacks? What about the Hispanics? What about the gays? What about the transgender?" I go, "Oh my God, that's far beyond the problems we have in Singapore, where just getting females on there is a big enough challenge." That's a completely different kind of concept. But it's good that it does take men to kind of push back and start a conversation. So at least you're challenging the people picking it, saying, why are you picking me? What about these other women over here? And it takes men to say no in order for women to get a chance, so that it basically stops the prejudice.
Okay, so makes sense. Let's pick up the last topic.
Sure.
I want to discuss with you, and this is like you're Mr. LinkedIn, obviously. And many people would argue is like, oh, what is the better social media platform, Facebook or LinkedIn? And then there's like very fast it goes into like, oh, Facebook is for like private stuff, and LinkedIn is for professional. Whereas I saw that in Southeast Asia, also in Malaysia, there's many SME businesses running Facebook pages. And they're like not. I mean, when I came here, it's not so long ago, right? Only 5 years, but I saw like a lot less people using LinkedIn for professional reasons than they would use Facebook. What's your take on that, or what would you?
It's very interesting. No, it's very interesting. What I would say is that LinkedIn is by far and away the best place to do business. I'm not even on Facebook, not on Twitter, not on Instagram, because I don't believe that's the right place to do business. Because I believe that it's a bit like if you went to a weekend brunch, for example, in KL with your friends and your family, you're having a great time, you had a few drinks, and then someone comes over and pitches to you on a Sunday afternoon. That's what Facebook is like. If you met that same person in a coffee shop on a Monday morning and they started talking to you, you talk to them because the business context is different. So that's what I equate LinkedIn with. So LinkedIn is very much about business, whereas Facebook is not. It's also fundamentally, it's very hard to actually do business on Facebook in terms of the data. The data's not there. Like the data's on LinkedIn because you put input if you're a CEO of a small medium business. So I can find all the CEOs of small medium businesses, founders and entrepreneurs, which are most of our clients across the world, by using the data on LinkedIn. I can't do that on Facebook because you don't put into Facebook, I am a CEO of a company this size, and you also can't target people by alumni. You don't put your university down. You can't target people by where you used to work or live or anything like that. So the data's not there. So fundamentally, the data's not on Facebook. Also, you have got lots of fake accounts on Facebook, which they've now admitted, and Instagram's got fake accounts. I mean, Facebook came out with a stat that they targeted more 15, 24-year-olds than actually lived in the world. So it's like, how do you have more 15? And they even said, we don't know how we've had more 15, 24-year-olds that actually exist, but we do. And it's obviously because they've got duplicate accounts, you've got fake accounts. It's like, well, if that's the case, you're basically duplicating your advertising and hitting the same people. So it's fundamentally flawed, whereas you can't do that on LinkedIn. It's very, very hard to create a second profile on LinkedIn, duplicate profiles, fake profiles. So the data is with LinkedIn. And fundamentally, too, the key thing is Sales Navigator. Sales Navigator on LinkedIn is the heart of social selling, because you can pinpoint people in Sales Navigator, create target lists, send out messages to them, and actually generate leads. So I'll give you an example. Every time I go to, for example, Zurich, which is our second biggest market, I have 20 meetings, 30 meetings or 40 meetings, like literally 10 a day, all generated by Sales Navigator.
Oh, wow.
And I will literally say, I will be in Zurich for 4 days. I'd like to meet you at the JW Marriott, for example. I'll be there these days, and I will fill my diary. I do the same thing with Hong Kong, do the same thing with Sydney, do the same thing with London, other places. So it's basically use the data. You can't do that on Facebook.
Okay.
You have to buy an advertising campaign, and it's just spurious. And you basically rely on someone seeing that and saying, "Oh yes, I happen to be." You have no idea that person is basically the right kind of person. We work with entrepreneurs, we work with CEOs, we work with founders.
Differently, right? Some people argue with me like, "Oh, if you put advertisements in Facebook,
but it's not targeted.
It's far cheaper than
of course
LinkedIn,
it is 10 times cheaper, but it's
Yeah.
not targeted. Whereas I can reach out, I can send 10 emails out to CEOs of entrepreneurs in Zurich and get 10 meetings. You can't. That doesn't cost me anything at all. That just costs me the fact I've got Sales Navigator and a good profile and a good proposition to talk to somebody. I wouldn't even notice where to start on Facebook in terms of doing the same thing. It's literally you're throwing things against the wall, hoping that somebody's going to see it, and then hoping that they might then respond and say, "Let's meet up." You can't do that. Whereas on LinkedIn, it's use the data. And fundamentally, fundamentally it comes down to the data. Fundamentally it comes down to what you can use it for, and it's a business platform. So every single thing you do on there, it's social media, but it's in the professional context. It's business. Facebook to me is not business, and they've struggled, and you can just see that they've pushed out so many initiatives where they said it's business, or they're doing SMEs or SMEs or SMBs, and they failed left, right, and centre. People go slag off Facebook left, right, and centre, especially now they've had all the scandals about the data. Would you trust them? There's a reason why LinkedIn hasn't had any data scandals, because there's so many opt-ins and opt-outs of LinkedIn. You're basically opting and opting out of everything. Whereas on Facebook, they don't have that. That kind of like those ethics. They also keep selling your data, whereas LinkedIn doesn't. So it's very much, there's fundamentally differences between philosophies of the two social media brands. One is ultimately about business and one is not. And one is growing. And also the other point is Facebook is not in China. Neither is Twitter or Instagram or YouTube, whereas LinkedIn is.
LinkedIn is.
So LinkedIn is across the world, and it's across the world completely. Like Germany being a good example. I went to Germany, for example, to do a workshop before Christmas, and they obviously have Zing. So we basically did a chart which basically showed that Zing has, I think, 13 million users and LinkedIn has 11 million users in Germany. But then I showed the picture of Europe. Zing, 0 outside. There were a few people in Switzerland, a few people out, German-speaking countries. But LinkedIn, like 150 million people. And then you suddenly see people going, you know what? If I just want to target Germans in Germany, I could do Zing. When I target somebody else, I have to use LinkedIn. Then I showed the whole world, and obviously Zing is nowhere. So basically what LinkedIn is. So that's the point. It's a global professional network, and it's the only global professional network you can rely on. Use the data, enhance your personal brand, and socially sell.
Okay. That was, again, a good marketing for LinkedIn. But makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And let's see if some of my friends which were really pro Facebook, I can convince you of these arguments.
You have to read my book. Read the book. It's all about LinkedIn.
I can really recommend it. Again, you'll find it. We put up on the links. You can buy the soft copies. Really, I can recommend.
Or you do you can do the Kindle, the audiobook, the paperback, the hardbook.
Amazing. I read one. Amazing. I can recommend that. And I think the others are. As interesting too.
They are, This is the best one. Because this is the latest one, so this is obviously the best one.
Okay, cool. Let me come to my last question. I mean, I have a couple of more questions.
Go for it.
We have to respect your time also, and we don't want to make the videos also too long. But we know we announced it earlier. Also, Malaysia LinkedIn will build their offices in Malaysia to discover more in the Southeast Asian market, which is quite cool. I think maybe your summary or your what you can give the entrepreneurs, the startups, like all the tips that you put in all your books, which is the most top number one tip that you will give everyone?
Very easy.
For their LinkedIn
very
profile?
easy. I mean, very easy. It's basically one top tip is your personal brand. Your personal brand that was meant to be your photograph. Have a photograph. Have a strap line. And what I mean by a strap line is, Chris Reed delivers LinkedIn, or Chris Reed, the only CEO with a Mohawk, delivering LinkedIn. That's your strap line. What's your strap line? Like Nike has Just Do It, Apple has Think Different. What's your brand positioning statement? And have that in your LinkedIn because it's part of your keywords. And then fill in your summary section. So many people don't fill in their summary section. That's your story. That's your bio. That's why someone starts a relationship with you. And don't be about, this is my work, this is my work. Oh, it's about, talk about yourself a bit more. Talk about your leadership. Talk about why you moved country. Talk about different things. And then have a background picture. A lot of people don't realize they can use the background picture to market. I change mine 3-4 times a week because I treat it like an advertising space. And then add media in. So you have to treat LinkedIn as a living, breathing profile which you change on a regular basis, and because you get people coming to you. So put videos there. It's about this. Put videos. LinkedIn loves videos. So put videos there. This is all part of your personal brand. So basically the number one tip is enhance your personal brand by doing what LinkedIn asks you to do, the simple stuff. If you do that, your ratings will go up, your views will go up, your search appearances will go up, and you'll start engaging. And then people go, wow, that's amazing.
Cool. Thank you so much,
Pleasure.
Chris.
Thank you
very much again for joining us and give us the opportunity and the time to talk about that. We put the video next Tuesday, and hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, and then we see you again in the following week. Thanks.
Thank you.